Tonight we're going to be making a special dish native to Rhode Island. It's called Rhode Island Clam Chowder. Okay, let's get started with our ingredients. Today I'm going to be using fresh Littleneck clams. I got about 2 pounds here in this strainer. Alternatively, if you don't have fresh clams in your area, or you just rather go a little bit of a more straightforward route, you can use a jar of clam juice and some minced clams. I have another video on how to make New England clam chowder where I go with this approach, but today I'm going to be using these fresh Littleneck clams. And I should say I'm really excited to do this video because I am a native Rhode Islander, and although I've lost the accent over the years, I haven't lost my love of all things clams. So this is going to be a fun one today. All right, I also have half an onion. I just cut up a couple cloves of garlic. I got a few pieces of celery here, and I have a couple of pots I'm going to be working with today. So I have a few cups of water here, and I added a couple of ounces of white wine. That's optional. I think it adds a little bit of flavor to the clams when I steam them. So I just put that in the pot there. I'm going to set that in the stove in a minute and boil it. Over here I have a spider strainer and a little pot where I'm going to strain out the clams after they're cooked so I can collect the clam juice. I just need to be a little bit careful because these are fresh. So sometimes what happens is some excess sand gets caught in the clams if they're not cleaned thoroughly. So just to be careful, I'm going to use a strainer to collect any extra sand that may have been left on. And paper towels are going to be your friends with this recipe, so have some paper towels on hand. Have some fresh thyme I'm going to use, a couple of tablespoons of butter, a few pieces of bacon, of course some red potatoes here. And I'm also going to be simultaneously using a Dutch oven as I steam the clams, and I'm going to be working with the bacon and the veggies on the side. So cool, let's get started. We're going to start by cleaning the clams. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to clean the clams. Often if they're fresh, they're going to have a little bit of sand on them if they haven't been thoroughly cleaned. So what I do is I just dump them in a strainer and I rinse them with cold water. And you want to inspect them and make sure they're not open. If they're open, you want to put those to the side. Obviously they're going to open up as you cook them, but if they're open before you cook them, you just want to set those aside. So I'm just going to go through, again, the method I use, I just dump the clams in a strainer, I rinse them out, just inspect them, make sure they look good. And once I do that, they're going to be ready to go. And simultaneously, what you want to do is you want to, on the stove, set the water and the few ounces of wine in a pot and bring it up to a boil. So that usually takes 10-15 minutes. So just have the water coming up to a boil on the stove while you clean the clams. And I will check back in with you in a few. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add the garlic right into the pot with the wine and the water. And I'm going to start up the stovetop. And what I want to do is I want to bring it up to a boil. I want to cook off as much of the wine as possible. So it's going to take a good 15 minutes or so. So simultaneously what you can do now is you can clean the clams if you haven't already, and you can cut up some of the other veggies, and in a moment we're going to get the bacon going in the Dutch oven on the side. So I'll check back with you in a couple of minutes. Okay, so while the water and wine's coming up to a boil, I just cut up 3 pieces of bacon and put them in the Dutch oven. So I'm going to cook off some of the bacon fat into the pan. I'll remove the bacon and then add the veggies in. So I'll add the celery and the onion in a moment once we get some of that bacon grease released. And I'll check back in with you then. Okay, now that the water and wine is boiling for a bit, I took the lid off. I'm going to let it continue to boil. I'm just going to add in a tablespoon of butter now. So I'm going to let that cook in with the water there. Give it a few more minutes. Let the wine cook off, and then I'm going to add the fresh clams right into the mix. So I just reduced the heat down on the pot here, so it's more of a simmer. It's coming down to a simmer now, and I'm just going to add the clams directly right into the pot. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to let it cook for about 10-15 minutes at a simmer, and the clams will open up, and I'll check back in with you when the clams are done, and simultaneously I'm getting the veggies ready to dump into the Dutch oven with the bacon grease. Okay, now that I've removed the bacon from the pan, I'm going to add in the onion and the celery. I'm just going to mix that in with the grease. I'm going to put the lid on, and I'm going to give it about 10 minutes. And as we can see, the clams are opening up over here. It's been about 10 minutes with them simmering. And so I'm going to take these off the stove momentarily and just make sure they're done. So I'll just inspect them and see which ones open, which ones didn't. So I'll show you that in a few. And in the meantime, we can start prepping the potatoes by cutting them up. Okay, so for the next step, now that the clams are done, what I want to do is I want to try to capture as much of the clam juice as possible into this saucepan. So I have the saucepan in the sink with a spider on top of it. And what I'm going to do actually as an extra step, I'm going to put this paper towel on top of it. And the plan here is I'm gonna strain it into the saucepan. And the reason I go with the paper towel is just in case I missed any of the sand earlier, I want to filter it out as much as possible. It's going to be a bit tricky to film this, so I'm going to do it and I'll show you what it looks like after to give you an idea. So I have my clams in the pot here where I cooked them, I have the spider where I filtered out some more of the sand, and I have the clam juice here, which is clean now. Okay, so the next step I'm going to do is I'm prepping the potatoes, and once I have those ready, I'm going to dump the juice into the Dutch oven with the veggies, and then I'm going to start cutting up the clams and get those ready to add in as the final step. Okay, so the next step is to take the clam juice and add it directly into the Dutch oven. I'm going to save a little bit to add in at the end when we add the clams back in. I forgot to mention in the beginning, I like to use bay leaves, so I got a couple here. I'm going to add some bay leaves in. I have a few sprigs of the fresh thyme, and I had those baby red potatoes. I left the skin on and I quartered them, so I cut them up small. I'm just going to add those right in. So at this point, it's just a matter of cooking the potatoes. Bring this up towards a boil, give it a good 15-20 minutes, and in the meantime, I'll start to cut up the clams. I'll show you that step, and we should be good to go. That'll be our final step, to cut up the clams and add it back in. Okay, so the clams have been done for a bit now, so I just put some of them on the cutting board. A couple didn't open up, so we're just going to set those aside. We can toss those, but the ones that did, I'm just going to use this pair knife, and I'm just going to cut out each individual clam, and then I'm going to cut it up into really fine pieces. I'll just put it in a bowl to the side, and once the potatoes are done boiling in the chowder, we'll add in the clam meat. Okay, so I'll check back in when we add the clam into the chowder. Okay, so the potatoes have been boiling in the chowder for about 20 minutes. I cut up my clams. I'm just going to add them right in. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the lid on the Dutch oven, and I'm going to turn the burner off, and I'm going to let it sit there for about an hour. And what this does is it fuses all the flavors together. So we got all the flavors from the veggies, the bacon grease, the fresh herbs, and of course the clams, the clam juice. And at that point we can serve it. So again, this is a little bit different from New England clam chowder. No cream in this, no flour, so it's not going to be quite as thick. But the flavor is really good, especially if you like seafood. If you like clams, it has that strong clam flavor. I'll show you the final product in about an hour. Okay, this is our final dish, Rhode Island clam chowder. Came out really good. One thing I'll say is a lot of people who make Rhode Island or clear clam chowder, they'll actually add some chicken stock to balance out the clam taste. So if you don't want it to be extremely clammy, you certainly could add like a can of chicken stock. This is about two cups worth. I didn't go that way because I really do like clams, so I'll just leave that up to you to decide if you want to balance it out. Feel free to add the chicken stock. And hopefully in the future I'll do some other native Rhode Island dishes like stuffed clams. So please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.